And welcome back to Atreyu News. During confirmation hearing, Gorsuch says this would make him hang his robe up. Judge Gorsuch says if he thought Scottish judges were politicians in robes, he'd hang his up. This guy certainly is scoring a lot of points with a lot of people. On paper, he seems to be a great man, especially for this position.
Mr. Chairman, these days we sometimes hear judges cynically described as politicians in robes, seeking to enforce their own politics rather than striving to apply the law impartially. But if I thought that were true, I'd hang up the robe. The truth is, I just don't think that's what a life in the law is about. As a lawyer for many years working in the trial court trenches, I saw judges and juries, while human and perfect, striving hard every day to fairly decide the cases I put to them. As a judge now for more than a decade, I've watched my colleagues spend long days worrying over cases. Sometimes the answers we reach aren't the ones we personally prefer. Sometimes the answers follow us home at night and keep us up. But the answers we reach are always the ones we believe the law requires.
And so true it is. Gorsuch. Fascinating guy. Comey. Russia's interest in the election was all about Hillary. They hate her. Well, yeah, understandably. It would make sense why Russia, and Putin in particular, would hate Hillary, considering she's calling for their destruction at any chance she gets. Yeah, I would hate her too. And in fact, I'm not a huge fan of her as it is. Comey says the reasons the Russians got involved in our election is from their hatred for Hillary Clinton. They left out a word, possible motive. Look who it's coming from.
Comey, you indicated as of August, September, do you believe they ever came to a conclusion that, you know what, Mr. Trump's going to win?
No, the assessment of the intelligence community was that early on, they thought he might have a shot. And so they wanted to mess with our election, hurt our country in general. That's always the baseline. They hated her, Secretary Clinton, wanted to harm her and thought it might have a chance to help Mr. Trump, and then later concluded that Mr. Trump it was hopeless, and they would focus then on just trying to undermine Secretary Clinton, especially with the European allies.
I got that. So up until summer and through the fall, they believed that Secretary Clinton would win. Is that true?
I think the assessment was late in the summer, they concluded, based on the polling I think a lot of people were reading, that Mr. Trump didn't have a chance, and they shifted to just focusing on just trying to undermine her.
And I tell you, if you were to tell me, and I know you didn't, but I'm just saying, if anyone were to tell me that they concluded Mr. Trump was going to win, I'd just say they're nuts. Because there was no one in the world who thought that. Every media organization, every political...
Not a person in the world thought that? Listen to what this idiot is saying. Many of us, and I suppose even my own audience, I think it's fair to say that we all knew it. As soon as he came down that escalator ride and held his first or second or even third rally, the real patriots, the one who actually care about the blood of America, we all knew deep down inside, in our heart, in our mind, that he would do it. What he was saying was the unadulterated truth in an era of political correctness.
Organization, every government organization that I'm familiar with last fall thought that Secretary Clinton would be the next president of the United States.
I think the Russians agreed.
Absolutely, they did agree. Then this is the point, and this is such a fine line, but it's such an important point. And that is, how can you know for certain if the Russians were motivated by hurting the person that they thought, in fact, fully expected was going to be the next president of the United States, and comparing that with the motive of this kind of a Hail Mary pass, you know what, maybe this guy's got a shot, let's try and help him get elected. Because those motives would be, and that's again, coming back to my original point, determining motives is very difficult. You have to either have very direct information, or you have to be able to get inside someone's head and really figure out what it is that's driving them. And knowing the Russians expected Secretary Clinton to win, would you see that some of those things that they've done would be consistent with undermining her presidency, not necessarily because they thought Mr. Trump was going to win and they wanted to help him?
Again, I think it's two closely related sides of the same coin. I mean, to put it in a homely metaphor, I hate the New England Patriots. And no matter who they play, I'd like them to lose. And so I'm at the same time rooting against the Patriots and hoping their opponent beats them, because there's only two teams on the field. But what the intelligence community concluded was, early on, the hatred for Mrs. Clinton was all the way along.
Yep.
When Mr. Trump became the nominee, there was some sense that it'd be great if he could win, it'd be great if we could help him, but we need to hurt her no matter what. And then it shifted to, he has no chance, so let's just focus on undermining her. That was the judgment of the intelligence community.
Well, I'd also, if I could highlight, I acknowledge the challenge at times about trying to understand intent. But the level of, we're not going to go into specifics in an open, unclassified forum, but the level of sourcing, the multiple sources we had, which were able to independently corroborate the judgment. And there's a reason why we were high confidence in everything except just one issue, to include the intent.
I understand.
Fascinating. And rightfully so. Russia hates her, and so do we. Trump welcomes major guests to the White House. Today, President of the United States welcomes Prime Minister of Iraq, and I'm going to butcher this name, Haider al-Abadi, to the White House. I suppose it's a little surprising. I thought their government had been dissolved. But perhaps not. I know ISIS has been utterly destroyed in 2/3 of Iraq now, so that's good news. It does suck what happened to the Middle East, though. For a migrant invasion would have never have happened had their homeland not been destroyed. It's a double-edged sword, but I'm sure we're going to see it through.